Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Sean Monett, the president of Blackton Inc. from Florida, where he specializes in new build construction work and has a team backing him to help that company be successful. Our focus is that what Sean's realized is he's become a psychologist, and when you are dealing with multiple employees who have multiple personalities and lives outside of work, and you need to get them all to communicate, work together, and play nicely to drive the mission of your business forward, you're a psychologist. That's what he, one of the big roles that he feels he plays these days is that he's going to, I don't want to say maintain the peace, although that probably is something that has to happen occasionally. But, we have to help people work through their issues, solve them, and guide them and help them advance and help the company move forward. And so he gets to play that role of psychologist. So we're going to dig a little deeper into that, find out how that works for him and how you can help apply that line of thinking to your own business. Speaking of being able to apply things to your own business, that's why Floor Academy is here. We are your source for weekly business discussions to help take you from owning a job to owning an asset. Don't misunderstand me when I tell you that I want you to own an asset. I understand some people want to be owner-operators. That's cool. There's lots of things that you can do to make your life easier so you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Systems and processes will make your business run a lot smoother and easier for you when you start implementing them. That's what we're talking about here every week. I want to thank the sponsors, Johns Manville, Tice, Virtual Estimates Now, for being here, helping the show to continue to get created. And obviously, thank you all for listening and continuing to do that. If you wouldn't mind, take 5 minutes or less out of your day for me and leave a review. It helps me punch way above my weight in the rankings with the podcast providers, and it goes a long way in me getting feedback about the show, what you're liking, what you're not liking. But it also, when I need to approach the sponsors, it gives me more to work with because I have a bunch of engaged listeners. So help me out, be engaged, leave a review, subscribe, help me with those stats. And that's enough for me. We will get me to be quiet. We'll get to Sean and let him introduce himself. So, Sean, welcome to the show. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Hey, Kyle. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm the president of Blackton Incorporated. Blackton Incorporated is a floor covering company. We're also a roofing distributor here in Florida. We've been in business since 1954, primarily roofing distribution up until 1968, 69. And that's when we started getting into floor covering. We've never been a retail business, although we do have a small showroom and we do friends and family and, a few customers. What we primarily focus on in 99% of our business in roofing and flooring is new home construction. We are blessed in the Orlando market to have most of the major builders in the country here. So the top tens they all have a presence here. And we have a lot of regional and custom and local guys. And we are in an absolutely booming market. And I know that there are some pressures that are definitely happening around the country, but Florida right at this moment is not under that type of pressure. We still have an amazing amount of people moving here. I think there was, I can't even quote the stats, but it was 127 million people that visited Florida last year for vacation. And, we're getting, 2,000 or 3,000 people per month in the Central Florida market moving in here. So primarily Northeastern. And our market so far, knock on wood, is still pretty on fire right now. We're actually having very, very strong months. I'm shocked because 5 months ago I was ready to figure out how to create a war room to deal with the recession, and right now I'm so far not in it. We are still a little bit preparing, but it's everything we can do to keep our our business going right now because it's so busy.
Take it while it's hot, man. Get those deposits so that you
That's
don't end up
exactly
on the
it.
hook.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of the advantages to Florida, because I know Phoenix has slowed down a little bit, and we're typically Maricopa County, where I live, is generally one of the fastest growing counties in the country, like year over year.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of the benefits to Florida is that it is more of a like, hey, let's go retire here thing. And so the largest transfer of wealth is slowly going to start happening here from boomers to Gen X. And I got to assume that your target demographic still is baby boomers as opposed to millennials or Gen Xers.
It absolutely is. I mean, what's the joke about Florida? They say it's God's waiting room. And we have a lot of that. I mean, we have a very large aging population here, and there is no shortage of people that want to retire and move to Florida. I think that's probably somebody sold that concept probably in the 1920s or 1930s when they had the big Miami, Fort Lauderdale boom from the Northeast. And it has stuck. And I mean, I have relatives in the Northeast along with a couple of my employees, and most of my relatives, this is their ideal idea of retirement, moving to Florida and getting a house somewhere near the water and spending the rest of their days playing golf. So we do have no shortage of those age groups coming here. And as you said, the greatest transfer of wealth. I read one time not too long ago that the transfer of wealth from the baby boomers to Gen X and their children is something like $75 trillion. And we're going to see it is when they say it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth, it is. And I think that we're already seeing some of that. I mean, you look at what's going on in the economy and through COVID, and granted there was a lot of free money being handed out, but there's also an awful lot of spending going on. I go to restaurants here, they're packed. It doesn't matter how much the price of the food is there, they're packed. Disney is at maximum capacity and shuts down almost every single day and locks their gate because they're over capacity through the fire marshal. So I think that a lot of that transfer of wealth has already started to begin, whether they're deciding to give a little bit to their children or the boomers are aging out and dying off and transferring the wealth. But it's a huge amount of spending going on in this economy right now.
The people that got it are still spending it. That's for sure. There's work out there, folks.
That's
Don't
right.
like, and this isn't the focus of the episode. Sean and I were having this conversation a little bit kind of beforehand about the economy and whatnot and where we're both kind of at, what we're seeing and things. So before we get too far down that hole, and I'd love to have that conversation. Maybe we do another episode and we have that conversation, but there's people with money, folks. And you just like, you got to find them. There's still people that are spending money and that need things. It's less people in some areas and more in others. And I think that probably generally happens during these types of situations with the economy. As people start moving around, they're going to go live with family or do what they got to do. And you can find success, but you're going to have to go work twice as hard probably, right? If you used to need 10 leads to close a lead, you're going to need 20 or 25 now. And you're going to have to hustle and drum them up and do that little bit extra. So, but I think this goes kind of with being a psychologist, because you gotta psychoanalyze yourself sometimes and get yourself pumped up to get through these situations. So, I guess in our initial phone call, thanks to Shannon Vogel, who's a mutual friend of ours and introduced us and said, hey, you guys should have a conversation. We got to talking and you brought up this concept of playing Psychologist for your team. So what does that really mean to you? And what was that realization when you came to it? What brought that about, that you were like, I don't know that I'd necessarily run a company. Like, I'm kind of this psychologist, is what I think our conversation kind of went like.
It's something that I've been telling people for a long time, because people, who don't know me or whatever, they'll ask what you do. And, I can say I have a flooring business and a roofing business, or I'm just basically in business. But what I am is, and I refer to myself this all the time, is that I am a psychologist, and I'm also a babysitter, and I manage the flow of people. Now, I love business, and numbers float around inside my head, and I can manage a balance sheet from 1,000 miles away. I can see how the numbers work. I can put margins down and figure out where I need to be. All of that is fantastic. You can do all that stuff on paper and hopefully be very successful. But as one person, you cannot do everything. Okay. Product has to be made, it has to be shipped, it has to be manufactured, it has to be counted, it has to be distributed, it has to be installed, it has to be serviced, and it has to be paid for. Mm-hmm. So you need people. I mean, any business, I mean, there are sole proprietorships that have one or two people. I mean, I guess you're a pretty good example of that in this business. But for the most part, we all have a lot of employees. And in this business, we also have subcontractors and customers. And what I have to do is not only manage the expectations of my customers on a daily basis and what they need from us, but the internal workings of an office. And right now we have about 65 employees. And, you know, it's any of them could have had a fight with their spouse the night before. They could have tripped over their dog in the morning. Anything that is going to happen to them, they're going to bring into work. It's natural human behavior. Mm-hmm. And I can't expect them to walk inside the door and shut off everything that's happening in their entire lives and solely work on what I need them to work on. The motivation for most people is probably money. The second motivation is pride in work, maybe. And then, you know, there's probably a myriad, that long tail of all the other reasons why people actually work and do what they do. But getting them in here and getting them to be successful and work as a team is a huge, huge challenge. So like I said, they bring in all those thoughts and fears and financial worries and everything that they have. And I need them to focus for 8 hours a day, sometimes longer and sometimes weekends, depending on how the job is going. Mm-hmm. And they need to be able to interact with each other. And you have departments and you have teams and you have, you know, the classic sales against, you know, production people and accountants against, you know, these, and it's just, it goes back and forth. And although I would like to be able to focus just on my business and my customers, I would say that where I've gotten to at this point, I'm out of a lot of the daily running of, you know, what job is going to what builder on what day. And more my focus is on how to try to make these people function as a family for at least those 8 hours a day and not want to kill each other. And, you know, you start getting multiple branches and then you have, you know, different groups being moved around, and it just, it's a challenge to try to motivate people. And mm-hmm. I think that is becoming a bigger problem in today's world. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the problem is with millennials, because I think that there's a changing attitude. I mean, that's the go-to for everyone right now, is that millennials are the problem, or, you know, whoever they are.
Yeah. Let me interrupt real quick. So I think that's hilarious, right? Is everyone still throwing millennials under the bus?
Yeah.
Millennials. So I'm an early millennial. Okay. I'm the spitting definition of millennial. I turned 18 in 2000. All right. Okay. So if we're going to give a 20-year period, we're looking at 82 to 2002. We have moved, like, millennials are in the workforce now. Everyone keeps using this term millennials. Oh, they suck. We done already entered the workforce. We're the people holding up most companies these days.
That's absolutely right.
Go complain about Gen Z. And it's not even them. I got to talk. Go listen to my talk that I gave at Surfaces about Gen Z. So you're right. I just think it's funny that, like, millennials continue to get thrown under the bus like we're still young and entering the workforce. We're all grown.
You and your avocado toast. You and your avocado toast is causing all the problems, right?
Yeah,
it's, you know, I do laugh about it, and it's very easy, especially for boomers. And, you know, I'm 50 years old, so, you know, I'm right on that verge of being in one group or the other. And I can tell you, absolutely, it is not just young people. The attitude that workers take nowadays spreads from 18-year-olds to 85-year-olds. It is a different mentality. What you had to do to motivate people 20 years ago is completely different from what motivates them nowadays. Okay.
Yeah.
There was a time period in this country, and granted, most of it was probably, northern parts of the country where people worked in unions, where you would work your 25 years, collect your gold watch, and sail off into the sunset, probably move to Florida. That type of mentality doesn't fly in today's world. First of all, there's not a lot of pensions. There's not a lot of those huge retirement packages that people got, whether you want to say they're large or not, but at least they had some kind of safety net after working for a certain amount of years for somebody. Today's worker doesn't want that. I mean, the idea of working for a company for 25 years is almost a foreign concept. And I mean, and that's the people my age. I used to say that, when you're looking at a resume, if the person's got, more than 2 jobs on a resume, that's probably a person I don't want to have. And it used to be a shameful thing to have 10 jobs on your resume. But we regularly get, things in here that, people have job hopped every 8 or 9 months, and it's not a shameful thing anymore. And people in my generation or older looking at it as a bad thing, and maybe it is, but we have to start coping with that type of mentality that if I don't feel like I'm either being paid enough or just not feeling comfortable enough at the company, or the general thought process of the company, the way they think about environmental factors, the way the people are, whatever the case may be, that they're going to move on.
Yes.
Okay. Today's worker, and again, it has nothing to do with age. If they're not happy, they are going to move on. Okay. And that's after that is after you have spent an enormous amount of money training them, making them think the way you want to think. Every new employee makes tons of mistakes in the training process. And in this business, someone could be setting up a job from a color sheet and put the wrong color tile in a house, and I have a $20,000 repair. So every time I hire somebody new, I know that if I'm going to pay them $50,000 or $60,000 a year, they're probably going to make $50,000 worth of mistakes in the first 8 months. No matter what I do, no matter how well I train them, they're going to make those mistakes, and then they're going to move on. So the cost of getting new employees is huge. So it's much better to try to figure out how to correct a problem employee than hire a new employee. So how do you figure out how to keep employees in today's environment? And it is a constantly moving target, because it seemed like every 10 years you had a huge generational shift on what you had to do to keep an employee. And now I would say that every 24 months, you have to figure out a new method for keeping an employee.
Man, you're spitting fire over here, man. This is all great, Sean. And I totally agree. From the fact that you say I'm going to have to find a way to play psychologist and get this team to work as a family, I don't think I see enough construction businesses that believe in culture. You're talking about being able to invest in people and grow them, and that's why this culture is you're right that the dynamics of what people want out of a relationship with a company are way different. It used to be money, right? Like, I'm going to go put in my 25 years, I'm going to get my promotions, I'm going to work my way up into, upper level management, I get the gold watch at the end, I get a pension, I'm set for life. And now it's, I don't feel respected here, and they don't pay me enough, so I can get this skill for 8-9 months, a year, whatever it is, and then I can go and take it and apply over here, and they're going to pay me an extra $3,000 a year, and I'm going to get these skills for 6 months, and then I'll go apply over here and over here. There's not enough people investing in people to grow them, but especially in construction, what I've noticed is that I don't believe there's enough companies that have the growth opportunities even available for the employees to take. A lot of, and this is coming from the installation side, I don't believe a lot of contractors are even set up. They're afraid to teach they They don't even call them an apprentice. They call them helpers, which I find completely offensive. Of if that's all you if that's all you really want, I don't see how you're ever going to get anywhere with your business, because all you want is someone that can run a tool or run a cut, right? Like, let's get an apprentice and train them to be a journeyman installer, a mechanic, a craftswoman. I don't care who does it. I really don't. I just want them to do it well and know it. But those opportunities aren't presented. They're held back. I don't want to teach them because they're going to go start their own business. They're going to leave me. Good. Let them leave. Because the system that we all have had in place of not teaching them anything has led to a bunch of uneducated business owners continuing to drive this industry into the ground. So
Correct.
Why don't we try something different?
Yep.
And that makes sense to me. I don't know where the rest of everybody is. But I know there are people that are doing this, but I love that the things you're talking about, I definitely relate to. And that's what I want to see, is people building good cultures and offering opportunities. And it sounds like that's what you have going on at Blackton.
Well, we try. And, one of the things you just said about, offering opportunities to people inside your company is that I would rather promote somebody. Okay. I have a philosophy about hiring anybody into the flooring industry to begin with. Okay. The one thing that I will tell you is that I don't want you to know anything about the flooring industry when you come in here. Okay. Because if you do, you're bringing all the ghosts and you're bringing all the luggage that comes with your eye. And trust me, over the last 25 years, I have hired plenty of people from my competition. I've hired people that are inside the flooring industry. I've hired ex-sales reps. They all bring in their own philosophy and they want to change my philosophy. They all know how to do it better. Whatever reason they're out of their company, it seems to be irrelevant to them. They want to come in and they want to bring their ideas and their baggage. And I don't want the baggage. I would rather bring somebody in that knows nothing and teach them floor. If they tell me the limit of the extent of their knowledge about flooring is that they've walked on carpet, then I'm pretty good with them.
Okay.
And I try not to hire people with, or not try not to hire, but I try to hire people with a good heart. And you don't always know that when you hire somebody. So I do tend to go through a lot of employees, because if they don't have that heart, it's not something I can teach them. I can teach them flooring. I can teach them how to operate my accounting system. I can't teach them how to be a good person. I can't teach them to care about their job. So when we tend to get employees, and we have a lot of really long-term staff here, I mean, we're going through the normal attrition that everyone else is during COVID and the problems that happen with that. But we do have a lot of long-term employees. And if I can figure out how to bring them up as some of maybe my upper management ages out or decides to retire, which I've got a couple of those going on right now, I would much rather bring somebody that's been working for me for 4 or 5 years that maybe hasn't been in that department and give them an opportunity to move on up into that department. That obviously helps build loyalty, and, it's, and versus me bringing someone in from the outside. I've, especially in upper management, I have never had success bringing somebody in from the outside. I mean, my people, well, they reject them instantaneously, just on principle.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if the person's a good person or not. Oh, they don't know my job, so therefore, I'm not even going to give this person a chance. And that person, will stick it out for 6 months and try really, really hard, maybe sometimes. And they'll just get frustrated at some point because they're just not getting the respect out of the employees that have worked there for 15 years. I would hate coming into a company where everyone's been in my department's been there, for 15 years and I'm the brand new guy. Sometimes I like that challenge, but it's a very uphill battle. So
for sure. I think I was listening to some podcast at some point and somebody was in that situation. It's like a Fortune 500 size company, but he came in and he was like, look, I know I'm not from here. I'm not going to do a darn thing. You guys just keep doing what you've been doing. And he spent like 2 months just going around, meeting everybody, talking to them. What's the problem? What are you struggling with? And, made himself available to learn about the company, as opposed to coming in and being like, hey, I'm the new guy and I'm in charge now. And so we're going this way and for these reasons, and we're going to do it like this, which upsets everybody.
That's actually a brilliant person.
I thought so. It's a great approach, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people aren't doing that, especially, you go and once again, taking it to the installer level, like you could go and hire a foreman to run crews for you. Man, I would come in and the first thing I'd do is be like, nope, like you guys run it. I'm here. What do you need? Help me, right? Let me help you. Let me show you that I have the knowledge and the skills to do this. Let me build a bond with you. And it's a lot of people get power hungry, right? Like, oh, I'm in charge and it's this way. So
especially
I
if you're coming into especially if you're coming into a well-oiled machine anyway. If the company's running, I mean, it's different if you're hired because you got a completely failing company and you have to change all the methodology. But if you're coming into a well-running company just because they need a middle manager, you need to observe how the company is running and work around that. Hit your goals a year down the road. Okay. Don't try to come in and wipe everything off the map within the first month,
Yep. But being able to promote from within, I think you have the chance, like you said, you want them, sadly, you want them dumb and green, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's my ideal hire as well, is I don't want you to know anything. I want to teach you my ways and my thought processes and my values and be able to instill all of that in you and grow you. But I also want to be able to promote you. And I can see if I had enough employees, I've never been able to keep one because they haven't worked out. And that's part of learning. It's hard to hire, man. It's hard to hire. And when you're not a great, look, I'll admit it, I'm not a great trainer. I'm a pain in the butt to work for. I had a previous great conversation. The gentleman, Dan Welch, owns Welch Tile up near Grand Rapids, Michigan. His question to me was, would you hire you or would you work for you? And I was like, no. Solve that problem first, right? If you wouldn't work for yourself, then who else is going to want to work for you? But being able to, as they grow, right? If you start hiring one employee and then you have to hire another one, a natural leader will emerge from within them. And it may be the newest guy you hired that has the respect and can lead the more senior people. Let them do it. Don't, just because you've been there 10 years doesn't mean that you automatically should get promoted to foreman. You actually have to have the skill set to lead and do that. And so is that while you're doing all of your analyzing and looking at your employees and being able to step back and keep that 30,000 foot view, which I think is absolutely awesome for a business owner, that you've been able to pull back and you can keep that bird's eye view of your company so that it can go where you need it. Are those the things you're looking for as you're promoting from within? Is like, who's the natural leader? You're not just, oh, you've been here longest, here you go, have the promotion because I got to keep you around.
I mean, what is it they say? The cream will rise to the top. It for the most part, it usually will. Here's a funny story. My vice president, Erica Costa here, she actually started 12 years ago. She was answering the phones. So I hired an $8 an hour employee and she was answering the phones. And, she has shown the aptitude to move up through the company because, first of all, she's got a very dynamic personality, but she is not afraid of anything. So she has constantly stepped in when we have lost people. Like I lost my roofing dispatcher, about 10 years ago. She was maybe a year and a half into the job. And she just, we're looking through the company going, what are we going to do? I'm interviewing people from the outside, which is, like I said, it's just something I hate to do. Mm-hmm. And she walks in one day and says, yeah, I want to do that job. And, we were a little shocked, like, okay, this girl's answering our phones and we're not even really sure she's that good at that. And she wants to run my roofing division, which is, probably the tougher of my two divisions. And she put in the hours, she put in the work, and she did it. And, she has been promoted 3 times over the years. Here she is a dozen years in. She's my vice president. She runs most of the daily operations of the company. She handles most of my superintendents and my field personnel. And she's done an absolutely wonderful job of it. But most of the time, people will put their hand up and say, I want to try something different. I want to take that opportunity. I've found a lot that if I have to walk to an employee that has been here for 15 years and say, hey, would you like to try this? And they knew the job was available because we internally post almost everything, and they haven't stepped up, chances are they're not comfortable in doing it. So trying to force them to take that role just because they've been here is going to probably be a mistake. I'll offer it to anybody internally. Okay. But if they don't step up, chances are I'm going to promote them because I feel that they need to be moved up, and they're not going to be happy. Not everyone's meant to be a manager. Not everyone is meant to run other people. And I have taken extraordinarily good employees and based on seniority, moved them up in departments that they already worked in, and they have failed miserably. And that's my problem, okay? Because I took a very good employee that was very, very happy doing the same, what I would consider monotonous work, day after day after day, entering a color sheet or, answering service questions. And said, okay, well, you're the next in line. So now, since your manager moved on, you're going to be the manager. And they took the job. Most of them take the job because the money involved. And within 6 months, everybody says this is a huge mistake. And now I've got this problem. Do I demote this person and cut their pay back to where they were? And they lose face with every other employee because they are a family, and there's interpersonal relationships that that's going to affect it. Or do I get rid of that person because they were, for 15 years they were a fantastic employee, just because they suck at the new job I gave them, but I forced them to take that job, and that's a failure on my part, not a failure on their part. That's at least the way I feel about it.
I think that's a great view to have the insight to take ownership and say, I made a bad decision to promote this person. And even though I'm assuming that they've gotten coaching and mentorship to be able to succeed at it, and it's just not working because, look, you can't take a cog with 12 parts on it and try and fit it where a 6-part cog should go. Like, the machine's not going to work, right? And so not everyone's made to do everything. And so that's the book Extreme Ownership comes to mind of just, look, ultimately it's my failure as the business owner for trying to make this situation happen. And there may have been a better fit. Correct. And I needed to go and look for it, and then finding the way to solve that. I'm going to interrupt us for a hot second here with a message from a couple sponsors. We'll get back into it, and I want to talk about what this mentoring kind of relationship looks like, and how, whether it's you or other managers that are building up the employees to be able to advance throughout the company. Go Board is engineered for durability, yet up to 80% lighter than cement boards. Easy to cut and handle, it can be cut on site right where it's installed using a basic utility knife without crumbling or disintegrating. Best of all, the waterproofing is built in. Newly introduced Go Board 1/2-inch thick 48 by 64 panels are now available. Ask your supplier to bring it on for you. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. Quick word on that. I looked at those dimensions and I said, I don't get it. And so, of course, I've reached out to a tile buddy of mine. And if you do a lot of tub surrounds, 48 by 64 is a little bit longer than the tub surround. You cut that 64 in half, you got 32. It goes on the sides. Makes perfect sense. Some people are going to look at those numbers and not make sense. That's why it's that way. It's great, quick for tub surrounds. So it's awesome that they have it in that size now. Introducing the ultimate solution for flooring contractors, a cloud-based virtual estimating software. Get accurate, detailed estimates in minutes without ever leaving the job site or even the office. With features like real-time collaboration, project management tools, and automatic material calculations, you'll have the information you need to close deals faster, more efficiently than ever before. Try it today and experience the future of flooring estimating. Check out the link in the show notes to demo the program, or visit www.estimates.flooracademypod.com, and you can check out the virtual estimating software. Okay, Sean, We're back. And so what does mentoring them look like? Because this plays into, being the psychologist too, is we got to figure out how do I grow you as a person? Because I'm, as you've stated already, hiring an employee is not cheap. The amount of time to train them and keep them, which I don't know why more companies don't do that, because it is so expensive and I don't think they know the actual cost behind it. But you pour thousands of dollars into people by the time you get them up and running to even do basic tasks like answer the phone before they raise their hand and say, hey, I want to go run your roofing division out of nowhere. Yeah. But it worked, right? And she's still around, and she's now vice president and killing it for you. And not every employee can do that, but somebody may be able to come in and answer phones and then go into, like there's different areas of the company where they could excel, but where do you even start recognizing the skills? Where do you start mentoring? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I'm a very big chain of command type person. So I have 4 direct reports in this company, and the idea of me being able to touch everybody in the company is, it's not practical. And then, there's 250 subcontractors on top of that we have to keep happy on any given day. So the idea is that I have to establish something in my 4 direct reports, Erica being one of them, that this is the way I want things to be able to be run. And this is the way that we're going to try to smooth the transition of a change or create a new branch or whatever the case we're going to be. And to make those 4 people understand that philosophy so that they can pass it on to their smaller group and then on to their smaller group and then eventually down into the subcontractors. So the mentoring of the 4 people that are my direct reports, it's me. All of them did not come from this industry. Only one of them did, and he was an installer. And he was just a gentleman that, he installed carpet for 27 years. And, he was getting to the point where he could no longer be on his knees kicking, a stretcher. Yep. And he had to move on. And in getting to know him over the in the first couple of years as a subcontractor, I realized that this was a genuinely good person, probably not your typical installer. Bringing them in and giving them an opportunity that maybe they never thought that they were going to have. Erica being a good example, this installer being another good example, a lady that we brought in for collections that, used to work at a bank that, went defunct. Maybe they didn't think they were ever going to have these type of opportunities to be upper management in this company and run, 10 or 12 different people in a department. So starting with no preconceived notions of how this business runs or what the customers are like or what the subcontractors are like, kind of training them in my philosophy and then letting them hire people that can follow that same vision. Mm-hmm. That's really the key to it. And then them teaching their subordinates that philosophy. I've actually very callously said sometimes that I'm going to be happy the day that we're all working with robots, because then I don't have to deal with people and I don't have to deal with the emotional problems and all the other things that go along with it. And that is it's a very easy thing to say when you're really in the thick of it and you're very, very annoyed at what's going on with people. Yes. And these last 3 years have really pressed all of my buttons for different reasons. But when it comes down to it, people are the key to this operation. I could barely tell you what jobs I have going out tomorrow. I mean, that's how far I am removed from some of this stuff on a daily basis. My job is, to make sure the margins are okay and keep my customers happy. I don't know what Listello is going into lot 56 at such and such subdivision. So yes. The people are what make this place run. And I do realize that. So I try to take care of their wants and needs to a certain point, but it's making them feel like people and not just a cog. If you just do a job for money, the money will never be enough. So you got to give these people purpose. And not everybody reacts the same way to that. And eventually, the people who don't react to it that way will filter out of the company. They'll find a different job. You'll move them on for whatever reason. But eventually, you'll have a strong enough core support that no matter how many of the lower level employees you lose, uh, the the core management team will bring in the next generation and breed them in their image, and your company can hopefully move forward. These people, they run the company. I don't. They're the ones doing all the work, and I have to get up every single morning, and I realize that. And as a business owner, you have to respect that. When you made the comment earlier about the construction industry in general being, kind of set in its ways, we are most of construction, because I have a lot of friends that are in plumbing and framing and concrete, and most of these companies are run by a lot of guys in pleated pants. Okay, these are people that they're in their 70s, they're set in their ways. If an employee is, fire that employee and find somebody else. Well,
Yep.
you can't do. I mean, that generation needs to understand that today's people are completely different, and they need to be treated differently. And that's probably the most important thing I can say, is that as much as you think you're running a business and it can't operate without you, well, remove yourself for a couple of weeks and go on vacation. The business will still run as long as you have the right people in place.
Man, I'm glad you can do that. I don't know that there's a lot of companies that could not do that. Everything would fall apart the minute the owner stepped away. But I think that's the great point to this, is that you have to be able to put these systems in place and trust people and let them actually step up and rise to the challenge, so that you can have a real business, not owning a job. You said that, you want people to be people, you want to invest in them and let them grow. What I'm wondering, and then you also said that you're instilling your values into like your key four people, which I think is great, that you've kept it small and kind of tight knit to where you're at. I think the number is somewhere between, like, you can't manage really more than 5 to 8 people effectively.
Yeah.
So do you have core values, mission, vision statement, like, written down? Do you have official, like, documentation that goes out? Or, oh, all right, maybe you found something here. But you have, at least with them, you're having consistent conversations. Because even I think a lot of times people probably, they waver on, like, one day it's this and the next day it's that. Well, which one is it? As long as there's consistency that's being communicated to them on a regular basis, then yeah, I think they can go out and execute what you're after. But where are you kind of at and all of that?
Yeah. Mission statements, core values. No, I'm not real good at any of those type of things. I'm not, especially not good at publishing anything like that.
Okay.
I think, a statement I made the other day is that, when my service department was really frustrated with one or two of our customers, our big national builders, and, this statement came up that the customer is always right. And I said, the customer is not always right, but the customer is still a customer. So we've got to work around it, and do I get in knockdown, drag out battles with my customers? Of course I do. There are ones that I've known for a lot of years, and I can call them an idiot when they're making mistakes. And there are other ones that I have to treat with kid gloves and, do something different with. But in business, it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're effective, you're a chameleon. Okay. I have to be everything every customer needs me to be. And I've got customers that do high-end houses that, start at, $2.5 million. I realize in some other markets that's not a big deal. But in Orlando, Florida, it is a big deal. And I have got, I have got some, subcontractors that, are Brazilian nationals. So I've got to become everything that they need me to be at any given time. So when I say a chameleon, yeah, I've got to change my philosophy and not change who I am, but I got to change in their vision of what they need out of me at that particular moment. And I think that most people who know me will tell you that I'm very good at listening to people and I don't blow anything off. And if someone tells me something that's very much to the heart, I try to take it to the heart too, because it's important to that person. And that doesn't just have to be my customer. It can be my employee. It can be a family member or anything else like that. I try to be a genuine person. And those are the things that I try to instill in my employees. When I said I want people with a good heart, I want people who care about other people. Because if they don't care about other people, what exactly is their motivation? You know? So, yeah.
No,
sometimes it's hard to explain. Sometimes it's hard to put into words.
I think having the authenticity, you know, being able to be yourself and be true to that and maintain it, right? We're not going to act one way with one client, another way with another client, and then this builder over here gets this version of Sean or the company, right? And being able to, I like how you put it, right? You have to be a chameleon. You're not changing who you are internally. You're changing the exterior to meet them where they're at and with what they need and being able to communicate the message. So I can come to you and look at you as you are and have that conversation to say, hey, I need you to adapt to us in this way. It's not that you're being offensive. Whereas the classic way of dealing with it is I'm going to come and scream at you and talk down to you. And then you're going to go and do it. Well, that's great, but now they do it begrudgingly and hate you. And how long is that relationship going to last?
And nobody ever forgets anything in this business, ever. Don't ever burn a bridge. Every purchasing agent you've ever yelled at, he's going to end up at 5 more builders, and you're going to have to be dealing with them in the future. And look, and I don't always do this stuff successfully. I mean, I sit here and I preach this stuff, but I mean, I suck at a lot of things. I mean, trust me. I mean, there's a lot of enemies I've made over the years, and I'm not always effective at doing stuff. But you know, but maybe one of my other managers is. Maybe there's a customer that just I cannot relate to, but they relate to somebody else in my company. Well, I'm not so much of a micromanager that I have to be worried about that person taking on that responsibility and getting that account. Move on. I mean, whatever it takes to make the business successful is what we need to do. Too many people are stuck up on, like you said, the mentoring type thing, or the tradesman where you have a helper. People are afraid that if they train them too much, they're going to move on or they're going to take their job. And I tell my managers, you know, as a manager, your goal should be to work yourself out of a job. Not that you don't work, but if you're not teaching your subordinates everything you know, if you're holding some of it back because that's your little proprietary thing that keeps you employed, then you're not fully giving everything that you need to give to that employee. And there's probably another opportunity for you further up the food chain. So work yourself out of a job, figure out how to make someone in your department be promotable into your job, and move on with your life. And as a manager, every single day, if you had nothing on your calendar to do, if you had 0 functions and no paperwork on your desk, you're going to walk into the office and your day is going to be full from 8 to 5, no matter what. You're going to be answering questions and putting out fires all day long. So if you have a set of daily tasks to do, all those are going to do is weigh you down from dealing with your employees and your customers' problems.
No, great insights. It's when I was at the big brown package delivery company in my younger days. We were taught that you need to learn your boss's job. Because I went from being on the union side doing the labor into very, very low level management, but it was, okay, you have to learn how to do your boss's job. And then it was, I could see it being played out from the person that was in charge of the shift in the building, that they would actively mentor the managers under them. Those managers were, mentoring the people down. And there was, I could see it laid out, and it's always made sense to me that when I came into the construction industry, more, specifically the flooring industry, I'm looking at these smaller companies, and maybe it's because I was able to work for some larger companies like that I was able to see that. But a lot of these small companies, it's very strange to me to see people hold so much back, and it's all about me and everything's built around me. Well, you were just talking about how I need to trust. Maybe I can't build that relationship with that vendor, but I want that vendor for the business. And,
Yep.
You had me fix something earlier that you are the president of the company. Now, are you technically the owner at this point? Like on paper, like you,
No, I'm not.
no, you
No.
are not. Okay. So
No.
you're running it, but I think that helps you because you're not the owner. Like the company is its own separate entity above you.
Mm-hmm.
And where I think a lot of contractors get hung up is that, oh, well, I'm the company. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You created something on paper. It exists. And that entity is above you. It exists, and you are now an employee of it. And so you have to put that entity first. And I don't know that a lot of people do. They struggle with that. And so they're not looking out for the company's best interests. And the company's best interests are that somebody should be able to come and replace you so that you can take that step back and have the 30,000 foot view, and you can start, hey, the vision is that we're going to go here and we're going to build these relationships, and now you go do this and you go do that. And you can kind of give marching orders and maintain everything. And that's what you're talking about. It sounds like to me when you're talking about, I need to be able to hand out all of my tasks. Other people should do them. And I still am going to get asked a ton of questions, but now I can focus on putting out the fires and answering the bigger questions because I'm not doing the 9 to 5, 8 hours of paperwork and my nose is to the grindstone. Because with flooring installers, look, man, you get a 12-inch view all the time when you're the installer. That's what you get. You're 12 inches off the floor.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
How do you run a company when your face is 12 inches from the floor?
Yeah.
Step back, guys. Get up.
That's a wonderful way of putting it, man. It is. Sometimes you just get too close to the subject,
Yeah.
It will micromanaging people will wear you out. I mean, it'll put you in an early grave, and it will make you want to change industries multiple times because you can't do it. You cannot make every decision.
No, not at all. I mean, has that been a hard lesson to learn for you, or was that something you realized kind of early on?
No, absolutely. I remember when I remember right around 2000 or so. I remember having a meeting with my managers at the time, and I said, because I was tired of things like back charges and unforeseen objects that are not necessarily on the bid sheet. Extra money you got to pay to an installer to get a job done. Whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Handing extra thin set to a guy so that he can stop complaining about having to use too much of it because the floor isn't prepped properly. And I said, if it costs $50, it needs to cross my desk. And at the time, I thought that was really important. So you quickly get very inundated when you put a dollar value of $50 on a company that's doing $30 million a year. And it scares you how many times $50 crosses your desk. And I remember changing the number to 1,000 at some point when we were in this massive growth spurt between probably 2001 and right around the crash of 2008. Mm-hmm. And in Florida we're also in the roofing business, so we had 4 hurricanes in there, so the business just went meteoric. And I think one day when I realized that 1,000 didn't slow anything down, and I think I got to the point where I said, guys, if it costs $25,000 or less, just make a decision and don't tell me about it. I mean, profits were big back then, and everything was good. But you are absolutely amazed when you try to manage down to that level. And I know so many business owners that try to do that. They will sign every piece of paper for every bag of thin set that goes in and out of their business. And I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. If you're functioning off of something that low level, there's a whole lot of things at the upper level you're missing. Okay. Yes. So yeah, I got to this point where it was like, guys, $25,000, just make a call. Okay. I'm going to get mad at you if I think you made the call just to get it off your plate. You didn't really think about it. But if you thought about it, and even if you made the wrong decision, as long as I think you thought about it, I'm going to go ahead and go along with it. Mm-hmm. Because at that point, the decisions I was making was, I couldn't function at that level. I couldn't anymore.
Definitely. This is a conversation I've been having with a couple of different business owners that are some of my mastermind groups as we're going around, and they're trying to grow and figure this out and remove themselves. And I think everyone comes to, whether it's you as the president or the owner of the company, if they're involved, everyone starts coming to you and they're like, how do we do this? How do we solve this? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
You can't answer every question. You can't deal with everything. And honestly, the fact that they're coming to you shows that there's a lack of leadership and education on you mentoring them and growing them. Because look, at some point you need to admit that, guys, I don't know. I'm running this thing by the seat of my pants, just like you. And you truly don't. Running a company is hard, and you have to make a decision. You may not have all the information. So it's like the 70% rule, right? If you're making a decision and you have 40% of the information or less, you're going to make a bad decision. If you wait for more than 70%, you've waited too long to actually act on it, and it's not going to be helpful anymore. And so about 70% is like this sweet spot of like, I have enough to make an informed decision. If it's wrong, we can course correct.
Yeah.
I need my managers to go out into the world
to do it.
And just, guys, if it's not going to kill the company, make the decision, good or bad. And we can fix it later. And I don't know that enough people are trusting and letting their managers and employees make those calls. It's like everything, like you said, right? At one point it was $50. I could only imagine the amount of paperwork you had coming through your office at $50. Yes. And a lot of them were probably just like, yes, go. Just, God, here's the stack. Have it back. Get out of my hair.
Exactly. And people think that my decision making is very successful, and it's not that it's very successful. Now, granted, I've been doing this a long time, so chances are I've been up against most of the obstacles they're dealing with, so I can make a somewhat informed decision on most of those problems. But the only difference between my decisions half the time and somebody else's decisions is no one's yelling at me after I make the wrong decision. So it still seems like the right decision. Okay. So don't confuse the fact that no one's telling me that I did it wrong with it always being right. Okay. So if I give you a managerial job and I tell you you're a manager and I give you the salary that goes along with it, act the part. Okay. Make the decisions, and you got to teach those people that, they're not going to get fired for a bad decision as long as it feels like the decision came from a proper place. It could be completely wrong. Okay. And like I said earlier, there is a difference between let me make a decision just to get it off my desk, or let me make a decision maybe off of not the total amount of information to make the proper decision, but I tried. And it's very, very easy as someone's boss to see whether they did it one way or another. Okay. And they are going to make mistakes, and they're going to make improper decisions. And there's going to be months that accounts don't turn a profit because of it. But you sit down and you go, okay, what did we do wrong here? First off, what caused the problem? Now, your decision on the problem, what did you do that maybe wasn't proper? And let's move on. Don't get mad at everybody for every decision,
What's the I gotta ask, and maybe if you're willing to answer, I'd appreciate it. What's the most costly mistake an employee has made? Well, because I have a line of questioning with this. So if you don't mind answering, I would love to do it. If you know, like offhand, or just a more expensive one that people would be like, oh my God, I'd have to fire somebody?
I did a house one time where we were doing mud set travertine, and we put in the whole job, and it was supposed to be a mud set job, and one of my field personnel decided that they were going to let somebody do a job that I was being paid mud set pricing on to do it with thin set, and it was, I don't know, 12 or 13,000 square feet in this monster house.
Okay.
And the entire thing looked absolutely horrid when you were done, because you can imagine this is butt joint travertine, no bevel edge, and just tiles all over the place and kickers all over the place. So we ended up having to start by hiring a guy to come in and try to grind down and refinish all the travertine. And when that miserably failed, we had to rip it all out, start over again, and it was probably that's, going from the process of grinding it and then actually ripping it out and replacing it. We were probably well over $175,000.
Okay.
As far as a single mistake, that was the one. Yeah.
Okay. Are they still employed by you? Or were they at the time? You didn't fire them at the time, correct?
Yes. I did not fire them at the time. No, I did not. That was just a manager listening to a subcontractor tell him that he could do it. He's been doing it for years that way, and he can do it that way.
Well,
and
I trust that guy.
And they allowed it. So we had some very stern words, because at that point it was almost we were paying mud set pricing, and the guy chose to do it with a thin set. So it was not only allowing him to do what he wanted to do, but it was also paying him for work he wasn't doing.
Yeah.
So we had some very choice words at that point. The person remained employed with me for a little while, but I think they thought they were on the outs, and they moved on. They moved out of state.
Well, it's a shame to me, honestly, because a lot of people would look at that and be like, you just cost me like $175,000. And yeah, that's a big number. However, man, I'm going to call that my $175,000 investment in you personally, because now you done screwed up. And I know if like you said earlier, right, if they have heart, right, you're looking for people that truly care. Man, they're never going to do that again. They're going to say, oh, I screwed up so bad, I want to look out for the company. And so I think a lot of times you're right. People look to hire or fire too quickly instead of looking at what can we take from this to say, that's your education. Now let's grow you more, right? If you're already in this management position, how do we take this, help you learn and grow? I know there's guys where they're, the apprentice dents the fridge, man. It costs them $300-400. You're fired.
Yeah.
No, trust me, they're going to be a lot more careful with the fridge. I've dented a couple fridges and had to buy the doors, and I think one of them was like $5 or $6.
Because the next guy you hire is going to dent the fridge too.
Exactly. Fine. Let's invest in you right here. I'm not happy. I'm not telling you to go dent more fridges. Yeah. Stuff happens. It's okay. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future? Those mistakes are an investment into your team, and you've got to let them have them. And it sounds like you are willing to, like you said, okay, the number's $25,000, or maybe it's more than that at this point for you, but you guys go make the decisions and own them, for good or bad. That's what you did. Yeah. Now, how do we not do that again in the future, right? Because how else do you learn? Because the only way I've found to learn so far is I don't fail. I make a bunch of mistakes along the way, and I can then learn from that and have the knowledge.
Yeah. We all make mistakes. I mean, every one of us. I mean, and we've made huge ones over the years, and I've made huge ones. And it's part of being a human.
Mm-hmm. Any last minute advice, tips, things that maybe we didn't hit in this conversation you think we should have hit on?
I guess just probably telling any business owner, because I guess, that's primarily who this podcast is probably geared towards.
Yes. Don't
be afraid to change. I've made a lot of mistakes by not wanting to change. And I realize now that they cost me money, they cost me people, They cost me sleepless nights. The world is moving very, very, very rapidly, and I think the pace is increasing. And the COVID thing with the work from home, and I've got a lot of friends that, that just everybody's coming back to work. I can't stand this. And realize in the floor covering industry, the subcontractors, they have to be on the job. Okay.
Yes.
They can't do that from home. But, adapting to the new world and, me being 50 years old, if I'm in this business another 25 years, it's going to change another 10 times. And I have to be willing to move with that. We all have to be willing to move with it. And it is becoming very, very rapid. And I can't even tell you what the next 5 years is going to look like, but I'm looking forward to it because I like change. And that's a weird thing about me, but I really do think change brings about monumental forward advancement. And this business in 25 years, it's we still do the same thing. We still put fuzzy side up on carpet, but at the same time, the internal workings of this business are nothing like they were even 10 years ago. And every day we're figuring out new methodology and new advancements and stuff to help speed up the process and make people's lives easier and hopefully make less mistakes. And don't be afraid of it. It's coming at you, and you need to embrace it.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's great advice. I would say that that's one of the biggest things I've noticed is I would call the flooring industry antiquated, personally.
Absolutely.
Those are my insights from a guy that stepped into it 7 years ago. And take offense, do whatever you want, and not you, just the audience or people listening and in general. There's a lot of this mentality of that's the way we've always done it. And I love that you're like, embrace change. It has to change, especially realizing that younger generations function differently in how they not only want to look for a job, but how they act at jobs. And it's not necessarily money for them and it's benefits. And you don't know where it's going, but you're willing to say, look, I'm along for the bumpy ride and we're going to figure this out so that we can continue to be around. And if you hadn't been embracing change, would you say 53, 57?
Yep, 54. Yep.
54. Can't even get the number right. It's in there. But you don't stay around from 1954 by not embracing some change. That's for sure. Because if you were still doing business like a mom and pop from 1954, you'd have been out of business by like 1972.
Yeah, exactly. So, you would have been, yes, exactly.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. I absolutely love this conversation. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time, sharing your insights with the audience, and just being willing to have the conversation of kind of how to look to mentor people, deal with employees, and play this psychologist role of building them up, man. Look, people are broken. We're all broken. Me, you, Sean, everybody, the audience listening, we're broken. We need some help and we need some guidance, and we need to come together as a community to accomplish healing ourselves. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen by you trying to do it on your own. It takes people need people. And so, look, I'm all for, if you want to be able to try and have a remote job, that's cool. But honestly, I see technology destroying us as a society because we're made to need people. We have to interact with them. You can't function without them. And so I love this message of coming together and embracing it and looking to change. And that's what we need. So awesome. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I would love to schedule something else and have another conversation and see where we can take that. But folks, I think I'm going to let you all rest your ears for a minute. I got to try and, I get the feedback. I hear you. We'll cut them short here and there. What can I do? Visit flooracademypod.com, visit the shop, go check out the cool files I have. If you reach out to me right now, there's not a lead tracker on the website, but I did develop one. It's in testing. If you would like to have a free spreadsheet lead tracker because you don't feel you can afford a CRM, I got it for you. I've spent the time to make it. You can help support the show. Go to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping me to continue to make the content as I asked for before. Leave a review for me, please, and subscribe to that YouTube. All that being said, I got a quick word from Tice, and then we will close this out. When will the highly anticipated new season of Tice TV from the International Surface event be streaming in 2023? Coming this April to Tice is the premiere of the Spring Product Celebration Series. This season will deep dive into products and services from across the flooring, stone, and tile industry, featuring impressive brands such as Shaw, One Floor, Laser Products, and more. Plus exciting celebrity news. The new season is being hosted by the iconic Lisbeth Calandrino, who has been captivating the industry and our audiences with eye-opening points, practical tips, and engaging personal stories through her industry experiences, books, and motivational speaking. Discover more at ticetv.com and follow Tice TV on Facebook for live airing alerts. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Sean, thank you once again for coming on and joining us, and we will catch you,
Kyle.
Next week. You're welcome. Remember, folks, learn while you earn.